Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today was round 2 of Rilton Cup and this game was quite something. It was crazy, it was really interesting and I'm super excited to show you this game. But before I do, let me just show you real quick as there's like whole drama happening around the dress code and stuff in the World Rapid Blitz. Everyone started wearing jeans today, so I'm also wearing jeans right now, but that's not what I want to show you. I want to show you the socks that I'm wearing right now because look, you see that? That's my face. That's my face. Katarina gifted them to me. She's also another streamer like me playing here in the Rilton Cup, and she gifted me those socks, so they're absolutely amazing. And yeah, I felt a bit awkward walking around in them today, but yeah, I thought it was a great occasion, a great moment to wear those socks as well. So yeah, there's that. But okay, let's get into the game real quick. So in round 2, I faced Kan Durak from Turkey, and he is rated 2446, and he is, I believe, only 16 years old. 16 years old, already international master, and on his way to become grandmaster. It's absolutely crazy. But he lost in the first round against a low-rated player, so I was really happy with the pairing because I was expecting to play someone lower rated because of the first round loss, but now we're playing against another high-rated player. So I started with e4, c5, knight f3, e6. I was expecting my opponent to play the Sicilian, but not this one. I was expecting him to play the classical Sicilian, so I mostly prepared for that, but here my opponent went for knight c6, knight c3, queen c7, bishop e3, the Taimanov. And recently I played a game where I beat an international master very quickly in the Taimanov. But back then, I didn't really know what I was doing, but I felt more confident because I had prepared. But now I did not have prepared this at all. And there's like so many different lines here. There's so many moves that black can play, and it can get really crazy. And I was not quite prepared for this. So I played with g4 again. Super fun to play. But my opponent plays h6, and here I thought, oh, I don't remember what to play anymore. I don't remember. So I went a3 because I thought, okay, there's one thing that I don't want to face is bishop b4 because for some reason this looks scary to me right now and I want to avoid this at all costs. But there's many good moves here. Rook g1, apparently my opponent told me, is one of the best moves. h4 is also possible. There's many different moves here, but a3 is definitely not one of the main options, but it's still fine. But my opponent played b5. I took on c6, queen takes c6, and this resembles the main line a lot, but this is slightly different, and I got very confused here. I play queen d4 because I want to avoid, I want to prevent that bishop from developing, so I'm attacking that pawn on g7, so the bishop has to keep defending that. Bishop b7, long castle, and now rook c8. So my opponent is preparing this bishop takes a3 threat at some point because my knight is very vulnerable on c3. But I played king b1 because, yeah, I want to make sure that if bishop takes a3 happens at some point, then queen takes c3 also becomes a threat. And I thought, yeah, I don't really want to have that. And also queen takes c2 becomes a checkmate threat, right, at some point. So I want to make sure that my king is safe on b1. But my opponent went for knight f6, and here I started to feel the problems in the position because my pawns are very weak. My pawn on g4 is not doing anything. It would have been really nice if I could put the pawn back on g2 now because it's not doing anything on g4. I should have really pushed h4 early on to really support the idea of pushing that g-pawn, but now it's not really doing much there, and it's actually a big weakness. So here I went for bishop g2 because I thought I have to do this. If my opponent takes on g4, let's put it on the board, then I get to play e5, and suddenly pieces are hanging. If queen takes g2, there's a checkmate on d7, so that's why my opponent cannot play this. And the queen has to move, basically, and then I take the knight on g4 and win a piece. So that's why this is not possible. And that's why I thought, okay, bishop g2, at least I'm defending this. I'm threatening e5, and yeah, it looks pretty nice. My opponent went for queen c7, which I did not expect at all, because yeah, it feels so solid. It feels too solid, and I thought, oh, wow, that's a really clever move because he is stepping out of that diagonal over here, and he's attacking my pawn g4 now. And yeah, I don't know, it's very dangerous. I was thinking my opponent would go for bishop c5 instead or something, like trade everything off, and I was not going to take on c5, but yeah, I would have retreated somewhere d3 or d2, probably d3. Sorry. And yeah, I didn't really like my position, but I thought at least I'm still holding on. And I guess also almost all endgames are better for black, so you don't want to trade queens with white. Queen c7 was played, g5. I thought I have to do it because if not now, then when? And my pawn is hanging, so yeah, that was my justification. I played g5. I was thinking of e5 obviously, but bishop takes g2 and it feels so unclear. I didn't really like that. So I went for g5, a takes g5, bishop takes g5, bishop c5, queen d2, because yeah, I have to keep everything, hold everything together. If queen d3, there's knight g4, and knight takes f2 is a big threat, and I thought, yeah, I don't really want to allow that. Queen d2, knight g4, bishop f4, d6. Very strong move, by the way. I was expecting my opponent to play e5 or something, and I was happy with bishop g3. But after d6, the pawn cannot really be captured, because if bishop takes, queen takes, my opponent's not going to take on d6. My opponent would have played knight takes f2, winning the exchange as both rooks are hanging. So that's why I have to play bishop g3 instead. Knight e5, and my opponent has just a really pleasant position. But in a few moves, it gets very interesting. Knight e2, I'm removing the knight from all the danger because bishop takes a3 can be played any moment, right? So knight c4 comes in, and now queen g5. In analysis afterwards, my opponent said that he did not expect this move whatsoever. He was really counting on queen d3, and then he said he would play some like queen b6 before, I believe. He wants to take it easy with the attack. I guess before we'll drop the knight, but yeah, it's a really pleasant position for black, but black doesn't really have to do anything right now. So you just have to play very solid here with black, and that's what my opponent did. But I went for queen g5 because I thought, well, if my opponent is attacking me over here, then I have to do something. It felt like I'm in a desperate time here, so I have to do something. And my opponent for rook g8, and I was feeling really excited in this moment because rook g8 is such a slow move. If my opponent doesn't have anything going on here on the queen side, then maybe I can start some counterplay here on the king side. So just to illustrate, I was calculating bishop takes a3, b takes a3, knight takes a3 check, and I thought after king a1, my king is safe. Well, it turns out, as you can see from the evaluation bar, that black is better still. But my opponent doesn't need to risk this, right? But knight takes c2, basically no checks are possible, and the crazy thing is that anytime you try to do something, so knight takes c2, king b2, so anytime you try something with, let's say, queen a5, I have bishop takes d6 here, which is covering b4 as well as a3. So black has no checks here whatsoever, and that's the power of the position, that I have bishops that can still do something, right? They're on the wrong side of the board in this case, but they can still help in defending my queen side, funnily enough. But okay, turns out that I'm seeing what the computer is suggesting here with knight e3, knight a3. That is completely insane. But yeah, there's absolutely no need to go for this fancy stuff, because black is in a good position, and it's on me to decide or to prove that I can make it still very interesting. So I have a lot to do here. Very tough here. I have to work hard here to try to survive. Rook d3, I thought, okay, at least I'm defending a3 somehow. Queen b6, bishop h4. And here I got excited because suddenly I'm threatening checkmate. There is queen e7 being threatened. And if my opponent plays f6, I'm in a very good position. I would have played queen g6 check, and suddenly all of these pawns here, especially e6 and f6, are very weak. And I was even considering after king e7, I would take on f6, pawn takes, queen h7, king f8. And I didn't really like calculate or decide yet how to win here, but I figured knight f4 seals the deal because e6 is hanging, knight g6 is threatened, and suddenly I am the one attacking here. This king is very vulnerable. The computer says +4, which is crazy. So yeah, of course my opponent didn't do that and went back with the queen, and I thought, so essentially my opponent wasted a move. And if your opponent moves a piece forward and then the next move they move it back, that means that you did something right. But how do I prove this? Well, I play rook c3, which is not the way to prove this. Apparently, this was the moment to strike, to go forward, and play knight f4. I did consider this move, but it felt so shaky. It feels like it's not right, or it's... I don't know, it doesn't feel good, because I didn't really see much after knight h5, but my opponent pointed out some really interesting lines where there was some knight f6 or knight takes g7 possible. But yeah, I didn't really believe in this, because at the same time, I thought that my knight is necessary to defend on the queen side, because I don't really have many defenders there. So yeah, that's why I felt like playing rook c3, because now the knight also cannot really move because of b4, right? So, and also, yeah, that queen is tied to defending the square e7, right? So I thought at least my opponent's pieces are paused here. But the problem is that my opponent gets to play f6 now. So my opponent can now defend quite easily, because I play queen g4. If queen g6 check, queen f7, and everything is protected. So I went back to g4, thinking, okay, I need to attack the pawn on e6, queen f7, b4. I was in a really desperate situation here, because if you look at this position for a minute, you will see that it's very difficult to do anything here with white, because you move bishop h3, which was my plan originally. There's knight e2, king c1, and I believe there's knight takes e4. This diagonal over here, my rook is feeling very sad over here. Knight takes c3 is a major threat, and yeah, my position is basically collapsing here already. It's really, really bad. So that's why I went for b4. I thought I have to do something crazy, because after bishop b6, rook g1, at least I have some ideas here. Because after g5 here, I was thinking of playing bishop h3. And yeah, this way the pawn on g5 is pinned, right? Of course, it should not work, but I thought, let's try to complicate matters somehow. My opponent didn't play this. My opponent went for the safe knight e5, which makes a lot of sense, because now after takes, queen g3, it's really hard to see how I get counterplay here now. Bishop b7, queen c3, queen h5, bishop h3. Apparently, I was told by chat that queen h3 was possible here, with the idea that, okay, pawn on e6 is hanging. If you play queen e7, bishop takes f6, and that's losing the queen. So you cannot play king e7. But obviously, there's other moves. And suddenly, I get a lot of activity with knight f4. My knight is hanging, so if queen takes e2, queen takes e6, king f8, and suddenly I'm winning material here. So despite the fact that queen h5 is attacking two pieces at the same time, and I cannot really defend both, queen h3 is a one-way, queen h3. Queen h3 is a one-way to defend both by defending h4, the bishop on h4, and attacking the pawn on e6 with check. And suddenly I would get a really big attack there. But yeah, this would have been a really nice attempt to complicate matters, because it's not so easy for black to play here. But I didn't manage to find this, as at this point I was down to, I believe, let's say 50 seconds or something. I didn't really have time anymore. I spent so much time early on in the game, because it was very difficult for me to find out or figure out what to do. I really had a difficult time playing fast, because yeah, it was just a tough position altogether. And when it's a tough position, it's hard to just play fast, you know? You're also playing a high-rated player that plays really good moves, and if you're facing really good moves, you also have to come up with good moves, and that takes time, right? To come up with the right plans. So that's why. But okay, I went for bishop h3 instead, but after queen takes e2, bishop takes e6, I thought, okay, like there are some ideas here, because I'm attacking the rook here. My opponent went to rook h8, and I played f4. Completely insane stuff, because after rook d7, I really wanted to play this, but there's simply queen e1 check, king a2, bishop d4, and queen a1 is happening next. And yeah, that's really unfortunate, because imagine if I had like some tactic here, that would have been crazy to come back from. But yeah, rook d7 is not possible, which I realized in my 30-second increment. So I went for f4. I thought, okay, like if you want to have the rook, you can have it, because now my opponent actually didn't take the rook. So afterwards analysis, my opponent told me that he didn't even calculate bishop takes g1. He didn't even calculate this because why would he? Why does he have to take the rook and risk getting, I don't know, not per se checkmated, but maybe I have some opportunity to come back in a game because queen c7. If black doesn't do anything, let's say bishop takes h2. There's queen b8 check, king e7, queen takes here, and if king takes e6, this is checkmate. So yeah, this is completely crazy. And basically soon I'll be able to pick up some pieces. The knight is hanging, the rook can be captured soon on h8. It's completely crazy. So instead of taking on g1, my opponent went for knight c4. There's absolutely no need to take that rook because it's hanging anyway. The bishop is hanging on h4 and my opponent is a piece up. He just needs to trade queens and that's it. So I went for bishop takes f6, bishop takes g1. Now he captured the rook because now my queen is not able to infiltrate in black's position. Bishop takes g7, rook takes h2, f5, queen e1 check. And here I resigned because, yeah, I'm losing my queen as well. And I'm actually getting checkmate soon too. So that was round 2, guys. This game was crazy. I thought it was pretty fun that I still made it really exciting. My opponent had a pretty, I don't want to say per se smooth, but it was, his move all felt natural. And he found really strong, good ideas. And the fact that he decided to play solid and not do anything too crazy was one of his best decisions, major decisions in this game, because he had a really good position. He didn't really need to do anything too crazy. And yeah, I had a really difficult time in this game, but it was very enjoyable. It was super tense, and I feel like it was nice that I was able to give him a tough fight. So this always feels nice. It is a bit unfortunate that I wasn't prepared in this opening well enough. There's so many Sicilians I've been facing recently, and that messes with your head, you know? If you are, I'm still in the process of learning openings, and when my opponents play the Sicilian, let's say, like, there's many different Sicilians, and I've seen many different move orders, and it messes with your head so much because there's so many things to remember in those Sicilians. So yeah, it's quite difficult, but I'm doing my best. Even though I've lost my first 2 games, which sounds so depressing, I played 2 really strong opponents, so I'm not feeling too bad about it, and I'm going to try to do my best tomorrow because tomorrow is round 3. And I'll probably be playing someone lower rated, but that means it's time to get a win. So I'm going to do my best tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for the support, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!